I find myself working security on and off for an old friend whenever he really needs it. And I find myself having the time. I like to give a pal some help with his business after all. We go way back, all the way to high school. He's always been the mischievous type, yet he always had big dreams. When high school ended, he and I took off to college, with me and him parting ways. Things seemed to be working well for him, contrasting my situation. I didn't want to tell him, as I knew he'd offer help for the grave I dug. I dropped out of college just a few weeks ago. This, of course, filled me with plenty of time, and most critically, without an income. This is why I took the job from him. 1 week spent overnight each day. I'd come into a sewer system that was under renovation. The first night, things weren't so bad. All I had to do was come in, wander around the place, make sure there were no teens or homeless people who broke in. I got to see the work being done to the place. The construction crew was still there even, though the crew left shortly after my shift began. I never spoke to any of them, just mutual glances before we kept on with our duties. The whole stadium was eerily empty, with black signage and rooms without any furnishing. I circled around the place with a few times, eventually stopping at where the construction crew had been working after they left. There was a hole in the floor, seemingly leading into an area below. Below was a dark passageway filled with debris, littered with soda cans from the crew. I didn't bother searching it as I was unsure of how I'd even get back up. And it was highly unlikely that anyone would even be down there. The second night, I came in to see the construction crew preparing to leave just as I came in. Again, I only glanced at them as they passed by, though they all kept to stare at me. I circled the entire passageway of the sewers, as per usual, until I arrived at where the hole had been yesterday. Looking down, the passageway had been filled with hardened concrete to a point where I could easily jump down and get back out. Although I didn't think anyone would be down there, I saw it as a new area I could quickly explore to keep things interesting. I would explore it and then come back out and carry on with the night as usual. I lowered myself to the opening and onto the concrete before making my way down the steep rock hill and onto the floor. The area down there was very dark, as several of the hanging lamps had their bulbs burnt out. Down the hall was a flickering dim light and doors branching off to rooms lined the walls. Doors in a sewer system. It felt eerily unusual. At the end of the hall was a lonely door, illuminated by seemingly one of the last functioning lamps. I began walking down the hall, realizing just how long it has been. Then suddenly, I heard a quiet knock. which echoed through the entire passageway. I stopped in place, shivers quickly spreading all throughout my body. The deafening silence was interrupted by yet another echoing knock. It seemed to be coming from the door at the end of the hallway. Just then, in my petrified stance, I felt a hand grab me by the shoulders. Ah! It had been one of the construction crew members. "You scared me," he explained. He had stayed behind to finish his work as to not keep the others waiting, and apologized for the scare. He told me that it wasn't appropriate for me to be down there and urged me to leave immediately. I never saw him leave the building while patrolling the sewers afterwards. Maybe he had gone out some other way. The third and my final night, I came into the sewer system expecting to see the crew, but they had all left already. I suspected they finished their work early, leaving me all alone this night. I carried on with my duties. Really though, I just wanted to finish exploring the hole. I came back around and once again, the hole in the floor was still there. This time though, they had obviously made an effort to keep me out, as there was large amounts of wooden boards covering it up. I almost felt bad and was wishing they were still here so I could apologize to them. That's when I heard a loud knock echo from the hole. I stood in silence, intently focused on the hole. Was someone down there still? How could they be if the entry was blocked with wooden boards? The sound came again, this time as a loud banging. It was clear now it was coming from one of the doors down there. I was startled, confused, but ultimately curious. They now had been trying to keep me out, while there was clearly something happening down there. As a security, was it not my job to keep entire sewer system secure anyway? I headed to the stadium, to the entire sewer system's main staircase. They don't usually give the keys away, but since it's my buddy's, he gave it to me. But there was no way down. Surely that floor had a stairway entrance. Eventually, in one of the areas backstage, to an empty was a door with a staircase down. I looked down the dark stairwell with a staircase calling out my name. At the bottom was one of the doors I had seen in the downstairs area. Descending the staircase, each step down echoed as I plunged into darkness. Opening the door at the bottom revealed the basement area's entire passageway. Down to my right, I could see where the hole was, and the end of the hallway to my left. Immediately upon seeing it, two loud bangs came from the door at the hall's end. I jumped behind the door frame, peeking down the passageway at the door. I stared in a terrified silence. The hallway, silence surrounding and sounding so loud that it echoed off the stained brick walls. I stood there for a few seconds. I began to smell the stench of rot. Just then, two loud hits against the door was now just followed by a curdling scream. I was terrified. I thought someone might be hurt, maybe a member of the construction team. I walked out and down the hall to the door. I was much closer now than I was last night, and I could make out what seemed like dried blood on the handle of the door. I was only about 10 feet away now when 4 loud crashes came against the door. I stood there for a second, contemplating what I should do. I reached for my nightstick, ready for the worst, when again I heard that scream. Yet this time, behind me. All the hair on my body stood straight as I turned to look behind me. Down the passageway in the darkness, just before the flickering light, was the silhouette of an incredibly thin person. Just from the shadow I could see they were wearing pants yet no shirt, and without it I could see they were incredibly malnourished. I couldn't tell if they were looking away or towards me. I stood in silence, loosely gripping my nightstick, as fear rushed through my bones. Just behind the silhouette in the flickering light, I could see blood and the still body of a member of the construction crew on the ground. I built up the courage to shout at whoever was down there, though I'm sure it didn't sound intimidating at all from my fear. I kept my nightstick raised as I slowly walked to the door I had come from, fully intent on booking it out of there. I observed the silhouette as its head quickly turned back to look at me. 2 large circular glowing eyes stared at me from the darkness. It looked like a cat's eye in the dark. The person, or the thing rather, began sprinting at me, letting out a high-pitched wailing shriek. I bolted to the door and up the stairs. I could hear the thing's bare feet patting behind me and quickly catching up. I closed the door at the above of the stairwell behind me and put all my force into it. The creature began bashing on the door with heavy force as it wailed behind the door like a starving animal. I kept all my weight on it, pushing into the door as I tried to pry its way out. I stayed like that for what felt like eternity before the thing gave up, and all I heard was the pats of its feet running down the stairs. I left the sewers immediately, waiting outside for the cops to arrive. They searched the entire downstairs passageway and found the bodies of the entire construction crew, though there was no signs of who had done it. I quit the job on the spot, informing my friend that after all of that, I don't think security suits me. It's weeks later now, and I was speaking with my friends about the whole incident. Apparently, the sewer never had a blueprint for a basement. That was incredibly odd. But the more unsettling part to me was that he told me that on the report from the autopsies, the bodies of the construction crews had been down there dead for days even before I arrived at the job. So who had I've been seeing in the construction crew for those 3 nights.